So, you want to stop being a casual. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a few tips on how you could stop being a casual and start appreciating the UFC fights to their fullest each and every single Saturday night. The first thing you can do is actually watch the sport. I can't tell you how many people I see online who clearly only ever watch the sport once in a while and pretend to be super knowledgeable about it. If you are someone who is only watching the main UFC event every month, or you have only recently started watching MMA, or you are somebody who is only watching the UFC every couple of months when your favorite fighter is fighting, it's gonna be really hard to be genuinely knowledgeable about the sport. Keep in mind, I'm not saying if you're a fan of a certain fighter that you are a casual. That's not how it works. But if you are only watching the sport once in a while when a particular fighter is fighting, it's gonna be hard to be knowledgeable about the sport. Sorry to repeat myself. I'm not saying you have to be like me and watch each and every single MMA event, whether that be a fight night or a main UFC card. But the more often you watch the sport, the more you're gonna learn. Imagine if you only watched the Super Bowl, but tried to give your opinion on all things football. It would be really hard. The more often you watch the sport, the more knowledge you're gonna gain. And the more knowledge you have about the sport, the more you're gonna enjoy it. In my opinion, the best way to gain knowledge quickly is to watch the fights and listen to the commentators like John Anik, Laura Sanko, and Daniel Cormier, like Joe Rogan, and like Paul Felder. I often see people call them biased online, and I often see people online saying they have no clue what they're talking about. These people do know what they're talking about, and I used to be someone who believed they had no clue what they were talking about, and then I started training MMA. Then I very quickly realized I was the one with the wrong opinion. I mean, truly think about it. Who knows more about the sport? Some casuals on the internet, or Daniel Cormier, a two-time world champion? The fact at one point in time, a very long time ago, when I first started watching the fights, I genuinely believed he didn't know what he was talking about is crazy. I promise you, the commentary team, no matter how biased they may seem at times, is just calling the fights like they are seeing them in that exact moment. And if you don't have time to watch all the UFC events, or some of them, there are plenty of fighters with YouTube channels out there, like Daniel Cormier, like Henry Cejudo, like Michael Bisping, like Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, and often they do really good breakdowns of fights, and they usually talk about the fights in an unbiased way. And there is nobody who is going to have a more educated opinion on fighting than actual fighters. The second best thing you could do, in my opinion, is train if you have the ability to do so. If you can train martial arts, I guarantee you your respect and your appreciation for the fights is going to skyrocket. This is something that happened to me, and I looked at the fights completely different after training. I realized how hard it was to fight somebody who actually knows how to fight, and I realized how hard it was to train at that high and intense level. And if you train, you are going to be able to appreciate the sport in a way 99% of the population just can't even imagine. You will have first-hand experience, and when you watch the fights, you're gonna realize how amazing these fighters truly are. You're gonna realize how good their technique is. You're gonna start appreciating all the small, little, tiny things, where a guy will literally shift his hips over a few inches and be able to get out of bottom mount. And when you start noticing small, little, tiny details like that when you're watching the fights, your appreciation for the fights and the fighters skyrockets. Number 3, remember that the fighters are human beings. It is your fellow human beings in the cage on Saturday night fighting each other. They are putting their lives and health on the line just to be able to entertain you, and they deserve respect. Some of these fighters do see the stuff you say about them online, and most of the things people say about fighters are just downright disrespectful. It's either people hating on a fighter for no good reason, it's people pretending like they know better than a fighter. They will say this fighter should have done this, or this fighter should have done that, and their fight would have been more entertaining, or they could have won the fight. The people in the UFC are far better at fighting than me or you will ever even be. That's the reason they're signed to the UFC, because they are some of the best fighters in the world. Please don't be ignorant and think you know better than these professional fighters. And also, show all of them some respect, even if you don't like them personally. Without all the fighters that fight on Saturday night, we would literally have nothing to watch. These people train hard and at the highest level, and sometimes they do come up short, but that's no reason to hate on them. Fighters put their heart, their soul, every ounce and essence of their being into being a fighter, and some fighters take months away from their families in order to be able to train, to fight, and when they lose, they are absolutely devastated. And in my opinion, there's no reason to hate on the fighters for losing. If you don't like the fighter personally and they lose, yeah, celebrate. Don't be one of those people that goes online and starts trash talking the fighter, or starts hating on them, or starts attacking them. It doesn't make you look cool. It doesn't make you look edgy. It makes you look like you know nothing about the sport, that you don't respect the sport, and you don't respect the fighters. Number 4, don't get caught up in the drama. If you are somebody who is constantly listening to other people's opinions and you are constantly caught up in MMA drama, I promise you the list of fighters that you like is going to get very short very quickly. 90% of the fighters that the MMA community hates have no actual reason to be hated. For example, Molly McCann. She just got a armbar win over Diana Belbita, and people are absolutely trashing Molly McCann for no reason. A bunch of people don't like her simply because she associates with Paddy Pimblett and she talks a little trash every now and then. She is a great fighter, and from what I have seen behind the scenes, she seems like a genuinely nice person. People have no real reason to dislike her, they just do it because it's the popular thing to do. It's the same reason people don't like Paddy Pimblett. He talks a little trash, he's bold, he's brash, but the dude has never done anything genuinely wrong to make people hate him. People literally hate on fighters because it's the popular thing to do. People will hate on fighters because their favorite influencers tell them to do it. 90% of people don't have a unique opinion on the sport. They are just repeating everything they hear and see. Very few people actually develop their own opinion on the sport, especially when it comes to whether or not they like fighters. Please don't get caught up in the UFC drama. Develop your own unique opinion on the sport, the fights, and the fighters. We have 2 tips left, but you're gonna see the number 8 coming up in a second, so don't be confused. Number 5, appreciate all aspects of the fights. If you are somebody who just likes to watch people strike and you hate when people wrestle and grapple, odds are you're not going to enjoy fights 50% of the time. More than likely, the fights 95% of the time are going to be a combination of grappling and striking. If you only appreciate striking, I promise you, you are going to miss out on half the sport. Each and every single Saturday, I see people complaining about grappling. For example, last Saturday when Drew Dober fought Renato Moicano, I go online and some of the top stuff I see is people complaining that Renato Moicano was grappling Drew Dober. You don't want to be one of these people constantly complaining about the fights anytime there is grappling. Look what happened every time Khabib Nurmagomedov fought. People called him a boring wrestler, and a lot of people hated his fights. But Khabib Nurmagomedov was the greatest lightweight champion who has ever been, who retired 29-0. And he was so good at his game, nobody could beat him. Remember, this is the sport of MMA, not boxing. It includes striking, it includes kicking, it includes jiu-jitsu, it includes wrestling. And unless you appreciate it all, it's going to be really hard to appreciate the fights. The best way to appreciate grappling, in my honest opinion, is to watch some high-level grappling, like B-Team versus 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. That is the highest form of grappling that you could see. You are going to see grappling on a whole nother level, and I promise you, you will develop an appreciation for it very quickly. Number 6, stop picking sides each and every single fight. Keep in mind, I am not saying you can't root for your favorite fighter. Anytime Conor McGregor or Alexander Volkanovski fights, I am rooting for them. I am a diehard fan of both of those men. However, if you are picking sides each and every single UFC fight, even when you don't know who the fighters are, odds are you're going to be disappointed 50% of the time, because either the fighter you picked is going to win or they are going to lose. And if they do lose, you're going to feel let down to some certain degree. And if you feel let down by, let's say, half the fights you watch, you're not going to have the best viewing experience come Saturday night. And often when people do feel let down, they take to social media and complain about the fights. And I promise you, you don't want to be somebody who is complaining about the fights all the time. Feel free to root for your favorite fighter and cheer them on, but don't feel the need to pick a side each and every single UFC fight. In my opinion, it's best not to pick a side and simply enjoy the fights that you're watching. One more tip. Number 7, respect the outcome. Respect the outcome of the fight, whatever it is. Like I said, it's okay to have a favorite fighter and it's okay to root for them. But if they lose, simply accept that outcome, that they lost. You don't want to be one of those people constantly complaining about the outcome of a fight, because I promise you, almost each and every single Saturday night, you're gonna be complaining. The biggest one I seen recently was Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. This was an amazing fight between two incredible fighters, and it was razor close, and it genuinely could have gone either way. 50% of people said Sean Strickland won, and 50% of people said Dricus won. But a lot of people don't remember what an amazing fight it was. It was an incredible fight between two incredible fighters. 50% of people were calling it a robbery, and odds are those 50% of people were very disappointed. And the other 50% of people were probably happy that Dricus won. But I don't think people realize how amazing of a fight that was. There was action from beginning to end, and there wasn't a single dull and wasted moment throughout the entire fight. The same thing happened to Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway the second time they fought. A bunch of people felt and said that Max Holloway got robbed, but most people don't remember what a genuinely incredible fight Max Holloway versus Alexander Volkanovski 2 actually was. Long story short, if you look hard enough, you can find something to complain about each and every single fight, whether that be a fence grab, whether that be an eye poke, whether that be a glove grab. And I'm pretty sure those of you who go online probably see people complaining about fights all the time. And if you are one of those people constantly complaining about the fights, each and every single little thing, you're probably not going to have the best viewing experience on Saturday night. It's okay to support your fighter, and it's okay if they lose. That doesn't mean they're a bad fighter. It simply means the other man was a better fighter on that night. And sometimes you might not agree with that decision, but we can't change the outcome. What happened, happened. You don't need to look for an excuse as to why your fighter didn't win. I promise you, if you are someone who is constantly looking for excuses as to why your fighter didn't win or your fighters didn't win, you're going to end up a salty and bitter fan very quickly, and you're still gonna be complaining about the loss weeks, months, and years later, and you will never truly fully appreciate the sport. Now keep in mind, everything in this video that I listed, I did at one point in time. For the first 2 years I was watching MMA and UFC, I was the biggest casual possible. I didn't respect all the fighters, I was choosing a side each and every single fight, I was constantly coming up with excuses to why my fighters didn't win, I was doing all of it. Then I started training martial arts, and my view, like I said, completely changed on the sport. But those are the tips I'm giving you guys to not be as casual, if you will. Those are the tips I wish I got when I first started watching MMA. Anyways, I love all of you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Alright, welcome to the outro. If you made it this far, thank you so very much. I do appreciate it. This was the hardest video I ever had to film and the hardest video I ever had to make. At the current moment in time I am making this video, UFC 300 is about 64 days away. And over the next 64 days, I want to try to make the best MMA content here on YouTube, but I can't do that without your help. If you have any ideas or videos, ideas on how I can improve these videos, please let me know. It really does help me out. Also, if you could please drop a like, a comment, and a subscribe on the video, it really does help, even if you're just commenting to say hello. Anyways, that's all I got for you today. Peace out, love you, bye bye, and good night. Or morning, or afternoon, whatever it is for you.